Welcome back. Today is one of my most favorite topics in the world, and that is creative writing. In South Africa, for the National Senior Certificate Exam and for the Senior Certificate Exam, this is Section A of Paper 3, and it counts 50 marks. This is the paper that can raise your marks tremendously, but in the same breath, this is the paper that can break you. And that is why I always recommend for Section A that you write a narrative essay. Don't go for argumentative. Very few people can write good argumentative essays. Do not go for discursive. Very few people can do that. These philosophical type essays, no. You have to remember, without being derogatory, without diminishing you as a person, you are 18 years old. You do not really know a lot about life yet. So the safest topic is a narrative essay. When you write a narrative essay, well, any essay for that matter, but today I'm going to focus on narrative essays. When you write an essay, you as a writer play 4 roles. The first role that you play as a writer is that of the madman. A madman just writes down all ideas that come to mind. Second is that of the architect. After playing the madman, you take a deep breath, you put on your professional suit, and now you select the best ideas, you order them, and you prepare their outline. The architect does that. The third role, after being so professional, now you get down to the nitty-gritty. You join the sentences, you link the paragraphs, and we're going to spend 2 whole slides on this. The introduction and the conclusion are so important when you write an essay. And the last role is that of the judge. Here, there is no sentiment. You are excruciatingly honest with yourself. You evaluate your work and you eliminate anything that does not suit your purpose. So here, you are critical because the purpose of the paper is to see what you know about English. No sentiment. Okay, first of all, we are going to look at the role of the madman. Now, when you plan your essay, you always answer the 5 W's and how. And please check, W's, the plural of 1 W, does not have an apostrophe S, because you never form a plural in English by adding an apostrophe. Please remember Winston Churchill. So you answer the 5 W's and how. The 5 W's, what, where, who, when, why, and number 6, how. The second thing that the madman does is you write a spider diagram, or you can use bullet points while planning, and you write down everything lest you forget. Please do not overestimate your memory in an exam, because you are so stressed and tense that things that you might think are brilliant, by the time it comes to writing them down, you have forgotten them. Please don't do that. Write down everything. Write down everything. It might, in the end, be the idea that you go with, and then initially you thought it was a stupid idea. The third thing that the madman does is brainstorm. You write down, there is no right or wrong. You write down everything that comes to mind. Afterwards, we are going to judge. Okay, so now, what? We answer the question what. Now, usually in paper 3 for your exam, this is the topic that you have chosen. They give you the topic. Now, remember how often you come out of an exam and you say, oh, those were such stupid topics. Couldn't they pick better topics? The thing is that you now have to come up with a bright idea on one of the topics. The process of elimination when you choose a topic has already been set for you. You eliminate all those other types that I spoke about. You eliminate argumentative, you eliminate discursive, you only go for the narrative. Well, that is what I always recommend to my students. Experience has taught me that the narrative essay, even the weaker learner, writes better when he chooses or she chooses a narrative essay. Now, your bright idea. The bright idea, usually, for most of us, does not jump out of thin air. And that is why we have these prompts here, these questions that you answer, so that you can start planning your essay. When you answer where, you determine the setting of your essay. Now, you don't have to write a paragraph to set your scene. A few well-chosen words can do the trick, even more effectively sometimes than a paragraph would. The third question you answer is who. Now, who answers the characters in your essay? Now, remember, you have a very limited word number. Your words for FAL, I think, 3 to 350, and for home language is 400 to 450. So you don't have a lot of words. And the more characters you have, the more words you need. So at the most, 3 characters. 2 are even better. But if you have to push it, 3, no more than 3. When you answer when, you are going to set the scene regarding time. Is this connected to a season? Is there a time of day involved? Is there a year involved, perhaps? Is there a place involved? That's part of setting, remember? Why is the purpose of your essay? Now remember, like all good writing, there must be conflict or a complication in your writing. Otherwise, it's going to be very boring. And then a conflict, as just a conflict in itself, does not lend itself to very interesting writing. So the conflict must escalate. There must be an intensification so that the line of tension in your writing rises, and that keeps the reader's attention, remember? When you answer how, that has to do with the action of your essay, the sequence of events. Now remember, you do not have to write a chronological essay. You can start at the end. If you have ever read To Kill a Mockingbird, then you will know that the novel starts at the end. So you can have a circular movement. You do not have to start at the beginning of your action. The second role that you are going to play when you write your essay is that of architect. Now you put on your tie and you decide now which ideas are viable. All these things that you have penned down now, you are going to determine which ones are going to have a progression for your story, which ones are going to cause your story to progress, so that there is a line of tension, remember? So you order the sequence of events. Third role you play is that of carpenter. Now you have everything on paper by this time. You have your action, you have your characters, you have your time, you have your conflict, your complication. All of those are in front of you on a page in writing. So now you start with the dirty work. And in the first instance, as a carpenter, you join the sentences. And remember, when you join sentences, you want your writing to be interesting. You add figurative language. Now, please, there is something that markers call over-ornamentation. You don't want your essay to be over-ornamented. You just want it to be interesting. So you add one metaphor or simile. You add one line of alliteration. If you have ever read when you were a child, Tadpole's Promise, the setting is in the first sentence of this children's story, where the willow meets the water. Willow meets the water, alliteration sorted. Setting, where the willow meets the water. A tadpole met a caterpillar. And there you have your 2 characters as well, within the first sentence. So it's quite possible that it can be done. You ask one rhetorical question in your essay. That's enough, more than enough. If something happens, there's a big bang, you use onomatopoeia once. Don't over-ornament. Now, while you are writing, obviously, you can't just have sentences, you must have paragraphs. You know, the thing that aggravates me most when I set my learners a creative writing task is when one puts up his hand and says, "Ma'am, must we write in paragraphs?" Yes, you must write in paragraphs, please. So you join your paragraphs. Now, you've heard about sentence connectors. You learned about that during the past 12 years somewhere. And you join your paragraphs in such a way that your story progresses. that the sequence of events makes sense. So you use however. After that, then, alas, you use words in the beginning of each paragraph that furthers your plot. The third thing that you do as a carpenter is you have to write the introduction and the conclusion. And those are two of the most important parts of your essay. Now, when you write your introduction, you want to capture your reader's attention and you want to prepare your reader for what comes next. You want them to be interested. You want them to look forward to reading your essay. Remember, the point of this is to get marks, to get the highest possible mark. So you have to play by the rules while being creative. A fine balance, but quite possible. There are a few ways of writing an interesting introduction. Now, these are not all the different ideas. Here I only have 6 that you could use, that you could practice a bit while you are preparing for paper 3 next week. First one is you start your story with a short anecdote or personal experience. Remember that genuine writing where I can feel your emotions, usually gets a good mark because you've made yourself vulnerable. And if you do this in a mature way, you are assured of a good content mark. The second way that you can write a good introduction is by making an unusual statement about the topic. Rugby is for barbarians. I think that will get the attention of anybody who reads your essay. They're either going to agree with you or they are going to disagree very, very strongly with you. But in any case, you've achieved your purpose because your reader is hooked. He's not going to put down your essay now. He wants to know why you say that. The third way is to start with a question. Now, you can do this in a humorous way, or you can be serious depending on your topic. Remember, your topic guides everything that you do while you are planning and writing. You can say the topic has something to do with your boyfriend or your little brother meeting your boyfriend, or your little brother playing a prank on your boyfriend or girlfriend. You can start your essay with a question. Just your little brother who says, "Oh, so that is him now." That's it. That is your introduction. It is effective. It is interesting. It makes the reader wonder. And then in the second paragraph, you will set the scene to say, this is your little brother. You don't say it, you show it. This is your brother and he's just met your boyfriend or girlfriend. Something interesting. You can challenge the reader. Challenge the reader's beliefs. Be very careful when you do this. In the final slide, I'm going to have a few guidelines that you have to keep in mind when you write your essay. But you cannot be disrespectful ever when you write your essay, because remember, you have an audience. The marker is your audience. You never write anything without the target audience. And even if this is only for the marker, you do not want to alienate your marker. You want good marks. So you're always respectful. Do not challenge in such a way that you are going to alienate your marker. You can state the central idea of the essay immediately, or you can imply the central idea of your essay immediately. The final thing that you will do as the carpenter is write a good conclusion. Now, if you've gone to all the effort of writing a brilliant essay and you have a disappointing conclusion, all that effort wasted. So disheartening. Don't do that. Try to focus for one last time while you are writing. Now, a few ideas on how to end your essay. The first one is summarize the main points. Now, this will usually be in an argumentative essay, literary essay, not so much in a narrative essay. But keep it in mind, if you are good at writing argumentative essays, if you are good at writing discursive essays, this is a good idea of ending it. The second way is to add something new and striking. In other words, you have an unexpected end. My kids love writing unexpected ends, but, very big but, if you have an unexpected end, make very sure that it is a credible ending. That when your marker comes to the end of your essay, they don't say, "What? How did this happen? How?" Even though it's unexpected, it must be credible. It must be a satisfactory conclusion to all the previous action. You cannot now throw something into the works that are completely unbelievable. But an unexpected end is a very good way of ending an essay. End with a short anecdote or personal experience. Now careful, if you started with a short anecdote or personal experience, please do not end with one again. Now you choose another way. This could be a good one. It might show a little bit of vulnerability. It might show a bit of humor. Humor is always a good way. Oh, while I am here, please do not let your alarm clock wake you in the last paragraph. That is so cliche. You're going to see now when we get to the judge. Avoid cliches. You do not want a boring end. And the fourth way of ending your essay could be a challenge to the reader. But please remember again, your marker is your target audience and you should never be disrespectful. Now, the last role that you are going to fulfill while you are writing your essay is that of the judge. You are now going to eliminate as many errors as possible because you want a good essay. If you are writing an essay for the National Senior Certificate or the Senior Certificate in South Africa, then you have a rubric, or we have a rubric, according to which we mark. And the first and biggest mark on that rubric is content. Now here you are done with content now. The first 3 roles, finished content now. The second mark on that rubric and the third mark on that rubric have to do with language and structure. And this is where the judge comes in now. The judge has to be critical, the judge has to be impartial, and the judge has to be objective. Now it's difficult because you have a connection to your work and you want to believe that it is so good because you've struggled with it now for an hour. Now you have to gain a bit of distance from your work. You have to be objective and look at this as an impartial observer so that you can now eliminate all mistakes, or as many as possible. And how do you do that? Edit. You know, learners go to all the effort of writing a rough draft, and then they rewrite the rough draft exactly, word for word, without a single change, as the neat draft. Such a waste of time. The purpose of a rough draft is to correct mistakes. You scratch out, you take out sentences. You now finish your building. So now you have to be ruthless. The first thing that you check is spelling. You read through your essay critically and you try to pick up any spelling mistakes. The best way of picking up a spelling mistake is to read backwards. You read from the last word of your essay up to the first word. That means that you look at each word individually, because if we read a sentence, our minds correct the spelling and the words that we've perhaps left out, our minds put in those words and you don't pick up a mistake. So if you want to check spelling mistakes, you read from the bottom up. Look at each word individually, critically, and correct them. And sometimes when you don't know how to spell a word and you use it 4 times in your essay, then you spell it in 4 different ways and you hope that one of them is correct. Please don't do that. Try to find a different word rather, if you don't know how to spell a word. It serves no purpose if you use a fancy word and you can't spell it. So rather use a simple word, spell it correctly, and not have a mistake. The second thing that you check for is sentence construction. Now you look for comma splices, you look for variation of sentence construction, one long sentence, then a few short ones, then a medium one again, all sentences not the same length now. And then effective paragraphing. A paragraph can be one word. If it's going to be striking to use just one word for a paragraph, do it. By all means, please do it. It can be so effective. But then don't do it every second paragraph. Just do it once. Twice at a push. Sentence variation. Paragraph variation. Effective paragraphing. Okay? Third thing that you check for is punctuation. Punctuation is very effective, or should be very effective. Pay careful attention to capital letters, commas, semicolons. Please make sure that if you asked a question that you added a question mark, but please one question. Don't go for too many more. And apostrophes. Apostrophes indicate possession or omission, not plurals. Remember, the purpose of punctuation is to further understanding. So, does your punctuation guide your reader in how to read your essay? The next thing you check for as the judge is you check for the correct use of quotation marks and inverted commas. Please remember that if you write an essay, this is not supposed to be a dialogue. Although, when you read a novel, people have conversations, this essay is not a conversation. For this, you have a dialogue in section B. A creative writing essay is not supposed to be a conversation between two people. If you have two direct sentences, that would be okay, but this is not a dialogue. And also remember that if you use reported speech in your essay, that you must follow the rules. If it is present tense reported speech, 2 rules. If it's past tense reported speech, 4 rules. Check my other videos if you have not mastered reported speech yet. Also, just a little extra information in parentheses, the best tense to use for a narrative essay is the past tense. If you struggle to write well, past tense. If you write present tense, you are going to get bogged down. Don't. Try to write in the past tense. And remember, simple past tense for most of your verbs, but if something happens before something else, past perfect. Otherwise, you stick to the simple past tense, past indefinite. The next thing that you have to look for when you edit is your grammar. You pay special attention to concord. Remember what concord is? The agreement between the subject and the verb. Singular subject, singular verb. Plural subject, plural verb. And please make sure that you do not use SMS, WhatsApp, Twitter, all these modern platforms. Don't use that type of language. You, which indicates the second person, is Y-O-U. It is not the alphabet U. No, please. I is written in a capital I. I know when you type WhatsApps, SMSs, you are too lazy to put on the caps lock. No, I, the personal pronoun I, is written in a capital I. The next thing that you check for is the appropriate register for the topic that you have chosen. As a general rule in creative writing, remember this is a formal piece of writing. This is a formal assessment. So you avoid colloquialisms, you avoid slang, and you avoid contractions. Now what many of you sometimes do is when you have too many words, now you write I'm contraction. And you count it as one word when you count your number of words at the end. No, when we count your words, we count those as 2 because we are onto you. So avoid contractions as far as possible. This is a formal piece of assessment. The next thing you do when you are the judge is you check your word usage or your diction. Have you expressed yourself in the most lucid, expressive, and effective way possible? Search for new and interesting ways to say things. Eradicate platitudes, cliches, remember the cliche I spoke about before, and generalizations. Please remember, do not over-ornament your work. One adjective to describe something is enough. One adverb to describe an action is enough, unless you want to do it for emphasis, and then you use 2 only once. Do not make it a general rule that your whole essay, every single noun has 4 adjectives, every single verb has 3 adverbs. Don't do that. Simple language is more effective. If you have done Funeral Blues as a poem by W.H. Auden, you would have learned that simple language sometimes conveys emotions, heartbreak, more effectively than very convoluted, fancy writing. The next thing, second last thing that you do while you are the judge, is you have to judge impartially. Is your response to this topic innovative and fresh? Can your markers see that you have planned an essay that has something new to contribute? Is it a breath of fresh air, or is it the same thing I am going to read in 504 other essays? My holiday to Cape Town. Do you know? I remember the first time I went to Cape Town, and it was very exciting, very exciting. But after I have been to Cape Town, and after I have read 7,403 essays about somebody's first visit to Cape Town, it is boring now. And we try to be kind when we mark your essays, but sometimes it's hard. So make it easier for your marker to be kind. Don't write boring essays. Do something new, something original, something fresh. The last thing you have to judge, have you stuck to the topic? And you can check this by ensuring that your introduction and conclusion frame your work effectively. Be very careful. Sometimes you want to push the boundaries. Sometimes you want to challenge the status quo. You are a rebel. I know at 18 it is synonymous with being a rebel. Now your essay is, you get a visual stimulus of a brick wall, and you now write about one brick in that brick wall. It could work depending on how you do it, but I think it's pushing it a little bit. This is not the time to push boundaries. With one judgment error, you can fail your essay. This is not the time. Be safe while you are being creative. Find that fine line. Now, as the judge, there are a few general guidelines that you have to keep in mind when you are writing. The first thing, mark your rough work as rough work. Check the spelling of rough. R-O-U-G-H. There's a wonderful word that has found its way somehow into creative writing, spelled R-U-F-F. No, not the same thing. That was extra information in parentheses. Mark your rough work as rough work. There is nothing as disheartening to a marker as marking the whole page of an essay, turning the page, and on the opposite page they now see neat work, and they have to remark that page, and then it's one of those essays where you did not do any editing. It was just merely a copying of the rough to another page, wasting precious time, no editing done, and they have to mark it again. Oof. Be kind to your marker. Be kind to your marker. The second thing that you have to keep in mind is you have to indicate your topic very clearly. Right at the top, very clearly, 1.2, and then you write the topic over, underline it, and then you start with your essay. Do not let your marker guess, which topic am I marking? It makes it difficult, not just for your marker, but for you, because you do not want to play Russian roulette with your marks. The third thing, and I have hinted at this before, do not preach at an adult, please. And remember, the adult here is the marker. This is your target audience. This is your target audience. Please show respect. Do not be condescending. Do not be condescending. Do not be disrespectful or insulting. If you choose the visual stimulus, the last 2 or 3 topics of section A, make very sure that there is a clear link between that picture and your essay. Very clear link. I shouldn't try and find a word that links to the picture somewhere in your essay. I must immediately see this is why you chose this topic. This is where your essay links to that picture. Oh, so important. No swearing in your essay. No. Not even for characterization. Don't. It's disrespectful. No insulting language. Do not let your characters indulge in an alcoholic fest in the essay. No. No gratuitous violence. And this is something that has been noted the past few years, especially among gamers, because you see so much blood and gore when you play games. It has become sort of normal. What is gratuitous violence? It's violence for the sake of violence. No, I do not want to wade through blood and gore while I am marking your essay. I want to protect my pure mind by not imagining all of this. So please, no gratuitous violence, no politics. You can be a very staunch supporter of your political party in your private time. Please do not try to convince your marker why a political party of some sort is the one to vote for, is the one that should be supported. No politics, no religion, because you do not know who marks your essay. And remember, you have to keep your target audience in mind. You cannot insult your marker. No religion. No S*X. I do not know if all the viewers of this video are matrics. There might be grade 5 learners like my son that I hope will watch this video to try and better his creative writing mark, and they don't know what that is, but I'm sure you do. No drugs. No drugs. Please do not show your marker the ugly that is going on in the world, although it might sometimes be very touching, and although you might have experienced terrible things, unless you are a skilled writer, try to avoid that. If you are skilled and you know how to do it, by all means do it. Share your story, share your heartbreak, but make sure that you do it in a mature way so that I can judge your writing as worthy, because I am judging your writing. I am trying to see whether you can communicate in English. This is the purpose of this paper. So make sure that if you decide to share heartbreak, that you do it in a mature way. And then the last thing, and I have said this before, the purpose of this paper is to see whether you can communicate effectively in English. So try to strive towards that. Keep all of this in mind. And then in the end, this is a lovely paper to write, because it gives you scope to be creative. It gives you scope to experiment with language effectively. It is such an exciting journey. So once you have done all these things, you have been the madman, you have been the carpenter, you have been the architect, you have been the judge. I think I swapped those middle two around. Now you write your paper over neatly in a handwriting that can actually be read, and you feel a sense of accomplishment. You have done your best, you've done what you could, you have completed an exciting journey in this essay. Voila. Now be careful, there's still a section B. Do not spend so much time on section A that you don't have time for section B. Follow the time guidelines that they give you in the beginning of your paper. Do not overspend on section A, because what often happens is that learners spend so much time in section A they don't complete the second piece of section B. You have to be very strict with yourself. Watch the clock. Do not leave yourself too little time for section B. And there you have it. Enjoy paper 3. It is exciting. It shows something of the writer. I think it is, of the 3 papers, the one where I can see who you are best. So make sure that the person I see when I mark your paper is a kind person, is a mature person, is somebody who strives towards being better. And there you have it. Enjoy.